Joel and
It
Luke
is.
Smallbone, welcome to Faith in Media. This is an absolute honor. How are you today?
We are
Oh, we're
well
just
coming
dandy.
at you from Nashville. Now we're well south of Nashville in the United States.
Wow. Do you know, one of the things that I find it amazes me is that the two of you have been able to retain a very strong Australian accent after now understanding your life story through the film
Mm.
Unsung Hero. How is that even possible?
Well, you know how it is, Carla. You lose things by neglect. So anytime you show up and you say, "Hey, honey, can you pull the car around?" You'll be like, "No, darling, can you pull the car around?" Just drop the R a little bit. You
Love
got
it.
to you got to just refresh.
I think
Love
that principle applies much more to like serious things. I'm not sure accent is the one that
it.
is the focus, but hey, we could, yeah, move on.
Amazing. I enjoy that so much. I like to start off with a little bit of let's get real to kind of the hearts of the
Yeah.
people we speak to. Guys, what an incredible project. What a wonderful piece of
Mm.
creativity. We were so moved when we were doing our research about the film. Firstly, huge congratulations on the undertaking. I can imagine this is no small feat. Production levels are so high. Looking at it, I think 6 days ago it was reported number two as the film
Mm.
within the USA, which is incredible. What a wonderful kind of start to kind of the trajectory of, I imagine, where it's going to go. We loved your quote that said, "This project is a testament to the power of storytelling and the impact it can have on people's lives." What drew you to storytelling?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of been a lifelong endeavor for us, Carla. I mean, even before Luke and I sort of officially formed for King Country, we would film these really bad, like Indiana Jones short film spin-offs. And Luke could never retain his lines, so we would always kill him off in the show first. So hence him becoming a producer now on this film. But it's always this idea of visuals and this idea of sound and the marriage between the two has just always been something that from the time we were kids, which the film sort of depicts. Even in Australia, our dad was a concert promoter. And so bands and artists, and we were always sort of at a show or seeing something sort of spectacular, looking at vinyl 45 records of Striper. And so it's something that's been a way of life, and we're really proud. I feel like this film is sort of a culmination moment for us as a family. To Luke and I are very young when we moved, but to take a look back and sort of bring something so close to home to life. We've always prescribed to this idea that the closer you get to your own heart, the further it reaches out into someone else's and the more relatable it is. And so that's what this is the definition of close to home. So that's what we've tried to do with this film.
That's incredible. What are your thoughts on that, Luke? I would love to hear from the producer's kind of mindset towards, taking on this very close to home narrative, as Joel so aptly described. How did you find that process?
I mean, I think that it's something I've told from stage for the last 11 or 12 years, and I've had a lot of people come up and, say things like, you guys should go write a book. This is a fascinating story. And, the truth is Joel and I were homeschooled, so we don't read or write very well. And so we thought maybe, it's a joke, but maybe we could make a movie instead. And I do think movies have an amazing effect on the mind, particularly actually truthful ones that actually, and you can look up, because this is what I do on Wikipedia, and say, did that actually really happen as they said it did? And I think because people are looking to find their own story in something that's on the silver screen. And one of the things I've always felt and loved about for instance, I was just at church on yesterday, and I had this couple come up to me, and they just wanted to talk about the movie. And they were saying, well, we relate to this because years ago we did X, Y, and Z. That's the power of art. That's the power of storytelling. And so for me, I've seen it for years telling the story on stage. And I just thought maybe there's something about putting this film up on the silver screen and just seeing where it could go, what it could do in people's hearts. And that's probably been one of the more satisfying things, is just people reflecting on their families, seeing the family's worth the effort, that it's worth the intensity that it deserves. And for us, I think if someone can have our story and it can spur somebody else on, I think that we say we'd do that every time, and I think that's unsung hero.
That's incredible how you've really given us kind of the insight to the journey of that. And you're right, there is such a powerful sense of championing the role of what the family should be doing. And I love that the film explores themes of resilience and hope and sacrifice. Why do you think that those kinds of things are particularly kind of relevant and important for audiences today? And I love that you used the forum where we get to see that is through your family, but why do you think that's so important for us to hear again now and through your film?
Well, one of the unexpected characters in the film was actually the time period, was the early 90s, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just far enough away from it to where it was right before the internet really took hold. It was before smartphones and iPads and AI, you know. And so it was actually a more localized moment, focusing on your literal community instead of your sort of cyber community. And there's always, sometimes you got to look back to know how to move forward. And this film for us has always been this beacon of, this is what bonded us as a family. This is what united us. This is what taught us how to collaborate and how to compromise in relationship and in work. But it was also a time where, you know, this you had less going on in your mind. And so my hope, I think our hope is that people, we pull, you know, mums feel seen and dads feel convicted and kids feel inspired to step into their dreams. But even more than that, Carla, I hope that people look at this and go, oh, gee, like maybe, you know, as brilliant as all of these devices that we have, maybe there's a simpler way to live. And maybe it is in simplicity that there is a sort of an exciting way forward where we feel less lonely and we feel more included in the family. You know, the summarization of this film saying, you know, if you want to change the world, go home, love your family. There's something to that I think really is applicable to this day and age.
And I think seeing how both of you have encapsulated that in the film and the expression of it is so powerful. And many will see it, I think, with a sense of yearning, because if we look at family dynamics or family units now, it does not reflect what you guys so clearly had in abundance, which is a blessing to see, but also to show some people like that actually is something that maybe we can desire once again. And that is super inspiring. Just to kind of like get a little bit lighter, can you share any kind of behind the scene anecdotes or interesting facts about making the film?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think for both Joel and I, we usually work backwards from a little bit of, this project is really, really hard. What makes it get to the green light of a film that actually should be made? And for a little bit of perspective, in 2020, I called a friend of mine, a producer, and said, "Hey, man, what do you think about this story? There's something about our parents' story that's really quite fascinating." And literally, like on the phone call, I was like, "Yeah, cool, let's do it." And I was like, you call up LA producers asking them for more things, you know. But anyway, we went on this journey, developed the script with that company, and then 2 months before we start making the movie, they back out of it, and all of the funding actually falls through. And so we were sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, you know, we're gonna have to postpone the making of the film and all these other things," which would have been a catastrophe for us because, you know, for King and Country, move dates around, all these different things. And so anyway, we made a few calls, and I kid you not, in 3 days, then we had verbal commitments for the entire budget of the film in 3 days. So it was like this whiplash of going back and forth. The other really interesting anecdote was Daisy Betts, who plays our mom. We literally looked at every actress in Australia between the ages of 35 and 45, right? We know every single one. And for whatever reason, we couldn't get, you know, we couldn't get the right, you know, personality, all these types of things. And Daisy only signed on to play our mother 10 business days before we started shooting. So there's all sorts of these, you know, we display all these miracles on screen, but there were so many of these other miracles behind the scene that was really quite wonderful to be a part of.
And I think some of those are the best bits. It's such a show we don't get to be part of, seeing
Yeah.
that process too. I think that, like you said, that it's just as important as the miracles that we see that you display in the actual film as well. My final question to you both, this has been just amazing to hear the insight of the story, the journey, and what has motivated you so powerfully to do this piece. And we're so thankful that you've done it. Is Christians in Media is a network also of storytellers. So this resonates really deeply
Right.
with us too. We've got producers, presenters, podcasters, seasoned pros, and some of those that are really just starting out. And for us media, probably a lot like yourself where you are out in the USA, it's changing so fast. From
Right.
your view, what would you encourage those within these spaces, and specifically through, I love the title of your film is about unsung heroes. There's so much of us that feel unsung because we're standing behind the scenes trying to make it work.
Yeah.
What piece of advice or word of encouragement could you give kind of to our collective community here in the UK?
Great question, Carla. There's a great adage: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. One of the most exciting parts of this film has been the ensemble. It's been, our wives partnering with us. It's been miracles happening. It's been seeing actors like John Locke from Lost, or Terry O'Quinn, or DJ Tanner from Full House with Candace Cameron Bure, and Lucas Black from Fast and Furious. These people come on board and say, we're going to rally around this with you. Similarly to Lionsgate, the American distributor, coming on and saying, hey, we're going to put this in, not only in America, but we're going to release it in the UK, on the 14th of June. And so there's something about being really unselfish with, there are people that might step in front of the camera. There are people that might produce the picture, but really lifting up the family. This is a film, obviously, that depicts family, but this idea of, people who look and think and act and vote different from us, maybe there's commonality that we can find, and we can accomplish something greater together and go further together than we could on our own. And this has been probably the greatest, most audacious project that Luke and I have ever tried to pull off. And I think the major reason we were actually able to do it is because it's the greatest team we've ever had around us to accomplish it.
That's amazing. What about you, Luke? I'd love to hear your final thoughts as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think if you're going to do Christian media, it's going to be hard, right? And you do it because of the calling behind it, and you think it matters. Here's what I would say. I would say this: there will always be bigger budgets for other news networks, other media organizations. There's all those things. That's just the way it is. But creativity is free. Use it. Make it to where your creative. I always think this: if our creativity as Christians isn't good, what type of reflection is that on our Creator, right? So be excellent at it. Be the best you can be. Don't sit there and say, oh, because I don't have this or this, that, and the other, it's got to be less than. No, be terrific at what the things that you're given, the tasks that are before you. Do it with great courage, with great vigilance. Do it with great excellence, because it matters. It contributes. People are more now, in my humble opinion, attached to stories and storytelling than ever in the history of the world. And here's the other thing: if you do your storytelling well, it will be seen by more people than ever in the history of the world. Because back in the day, a storyteller was known around a fire or in a village, and they would come and they would attend a gathering with the great storyteller. Well, that might have been 50 people, and he may have been the best in his little world for 50 people. There's nothing wrong with it. You could be the best in your world now, and it could be seen by thousands all across the world. We sometimes forget that there's a much bigger world out there than just even Western society. So, my hope is that for anyone endeavoring in Christian arts and Christian media and all those types of things, be terrific, be excellent at it, and recognize that the creativity that God has given you, He's given it just for you. Use it freely. It's a powerful tool.
That's amazing. That is such wise words and things we can certainly take home. Find your tribe, find your people, and more than anything, just be excellent with what God has given us. Luke and Joel, we're wishing you all of the best. We cannot wait for the release of the film here in the UK later this year, and excited to be part of being part of the fire that you've started around the world with Unsung Hero. Wishing you guys our very best.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate you.
Such a moving interview there by the brothers Luke and Joel Smallbone, producer and directors of the Unsung Hero film, due to release this week. So many takeaways from that short but very sweet and powerful interview. And I wondered if it would be perfect just to be able to encapsulate some of that further with my own reflections. One of the things that they speak about is the power of our story. And I love this because it immediately brought me to an understanding of what the word says in Revelation 12:11. It says, "And they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony." So many times I think we can underestimate the power of what our story, our testimony can do, particularly those of us that share space within the creativity arena. Whether you are someone that facilitates the stories of others as a podcaster, or you're a writer, or you show it through broadcasting or journalism, or whichever capacity or whatever space that you find yourself fulfilling, you are in a position to bring forth the power of someone's story. And that really, really blessed me. And it was wonderful to hear how the Small Bones have really used that as such a huge kind of mandate for all of the areas that they've been able to express creativity through music, that we know them through their band For King and Country, and also through, of course, the Unsung Hero film, which is going out this week here in the UK. I think one of the things that touched me a lot as well was that this story, Unsung Hero, really resonated with some of my own. Not many people know my story. I've been privileged to be the anchor of Christians in Media's podcast, Faith in Media. But my story resonated so much with what it is that it seems that the Small Bone family had encountered. I myself also migrated countries in the 90s. I originally come from South Africa, Cape Town. We were moving from a country that was experiencing a lot of political turmoil. It was the year not so far off that Nelson Mandela himself was being released from a long stretch in prison for politics. It's a story I think it's still quite hard to share about, because it's a big part of my story, and so much of it is accompanied with questions and figuring out what was God doing in that time. And that was a really, really long time ago. It's about 30 years ago, if I think about it correctly. But what a testimony. My parents, who felt the call of God to move to the UK, my mother's side is predominantly British. So that's kind of our connection with the UK, but they felt such a call to come, and were the first to be sent out as missionaries from their own church all those times and years ago. And I felt that there was no real destination in sight that was clear. They went on literally a promise and a word that was confirmed so many times. And they really exemplified such true faith. Two small children, not really knowing where they were going, but just a huge bucket of faith and trusting in what God would do. And time again, so similar to what the Small Bones experienced as a family, was that sacredness of sharing that moment together as a family. We became one another's unit in a way that I think I'd never experienced or expected we would do. We'd also seen the miracles of God, literally providing food on our table. Vehicles and cars were coming from places that people were gifting us, so similar to what we see in this film. It was such a blessing. And for me, watching this film and experiencing it for myself really brought all of these back to remembrance. And just a wonderful opportunity to look back and look at all of, should I say, the pillars of what God has done in terms of proving his faithfulness. And I really hope that as the story of the Small Bones had certainly ministered and triggered my own story, that even you hearing how it had impacted my story, this might further on kind of create a sense of inspiring you to reflect on what God has been doing in your story. I appreciate so much the value of family. And I think just the reminder of the sacredness of family. God places us in families. Sometimes that's not always our biological family. But what he does do is ask us to join us community-wise, to look at one another as brothers and sisters in Christ. He's given us a body of Christ to function in, to represent him. And it's so important to sometimes remember that there is such goodness, there is such greatness that comes from that space. And it was a wonderful, should I say, example depicted in the Unsung Hero story of the Small Bone family, of through that cluster of family goodness and faith and uniting and standing together, even in really, really tough times, that greatness came from it. Greatness and success came from it, not in a way that's linear, not in a way that's easy. They weren't exempted from any challenges, but there is something beautiful about what God wants to do in families. And to see that kind of like reminded and put in a focus of promoting that once again was such a blessing to see. The other element, and I've mentioned it before, is just the element of faith. Faith is just so crucial to this Christian walk. And I know that might be really obvious, but I think it doesn't go without really just bringing it back to the basics, that it is truly simple faith, our trust in a good Father, in a good God, that takes us from one step to another in our destination and the goals that he has for us. And also, finally, one of the things that really resonated with me, and I want to end off in this little reflection, is that we need to be excellent with our gifts and our creativity. Luke, I think, shared that in his final thoughts in this incredible interview with these gentlemen, was that be excellent as men and women of God. If we have been called to the creative spaces, we are reflecting our Creator. And that really says something. That means we have a bit of a responsibility to steward and to make sure that we are exhausting what he's given us in a way that is worthy, in a way that is integrate, to glorify the person that is gifted that to us. So whatever you're doing, whatever space that you find yourself, if you're doing the sound on a Sunday at the back of your church, if you are in fact an unsung hero, someone who is not always visible, be excellent where you are. God honors those that are excellent. God honors those that are faithful to what he's given them. And I just want to leave those few thoughts with you. I hope that you've been blessed by this interview. And I hope that, like myself, it continues to inspire you in a way that you want to do well with giving the power of your story into the hands of God. Thank you so much for listening. And I look forward to having some more time with you at Faith in Media.
You've been listening to Faith in Media with Carla Radebekin. Make sure you catch our episodes and hit subscribe. Please share and leave us a comment. Christians in Media is a UK charity that supports, encourages and inspires Christians from across the ever-changing media landscape. Find out more at www.christiansinmedia.co.uk and connect with us via our socials.